Hey, that's very bad. 13 games in a row. I've been right here talking about a loss. The Raptors lose 135 to 120 against the shorthanded 76ers. There's no Embiid. There's no Maxey. There's just a hero unsung for a time and now widely celebrated who returned home 11 points and 10 assists, 2 blocks and a steal. One of those, well, a couple of those being like the swipe down block type thing. The Raptors lose to Kyle Lowry's Philadelphia 76ers. Also, you get, pretty good games from Cameron Payne. 24 points is a lot for him. I mean, it's a lot for a lot of players, but Cameron Payne especially. Kelly Oubre Jr., 32 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Tobias Harris, 21 points on like 12 shots, 9 boards, 3 assists. I mean, even Nick Batum had 19 points off the bench, 7 of 8, 5 of 6 from downtown. Like, Kelly hit 6 of 11 from 3. Kyle was 3 of 5. Cameron Payne was 6 of 10. That's the crazy one. Nick Batum was 5 of 6. Buddy Hield, 3 of 5. That is just a regular day for him, but holy smokes. 2 former Raptors point guards. Actually, 3. 3. Cameron Payne is a former Raptor. Kyle Lowry is the former Raptor. And Jeff Doughton Jr. is a former Raptor. Death by former Raptors. Phoenix Plays East says, so the Raptors suck. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights says, Happy Easter. Happy Easter, Daniel. It's, Jordan Nwora had like a nice stretch in the game. He got to the front of the rim a few times. Kelly, pretty good passing game. Like the Raptors, when they made their runs in this game, and they had a couple of them, it was largely through, it seems crazy to talk about the same things over and over again on these, these podcasts, but the Raptors are very much playing in scheme. And when you talk about a team that like runs a ton of pick and roll, at least maybe you could focus on like who the pick and roll ball handler is and how much success they're having and what they're doing to succeed. They're running a high post offense. They're running delay action with a bunch of split action, a bunch of split cuts. And that's like they're making back cuts. They're getting passes. They're coming down into the lane. If the 76ers, they overplay the screen going back, they might pop open for some threes. They run handoffs. Guys come out of them. Gary Trent, more than any other player, is going to put up a shot. Grady's going to get one up. Grady hit a 3 fading to his right out of a pick and roll possession. But largely, these Raptors are doing the same thing every game. Delay action into Chicago or high post into split cut. Is somebody open down low? Make the read downhill. Is the read downhill create a response from the bottom of the defense? Yes. Make the pass to the corner or go above the break. Play with advantage, 0.5 basketball, keep the offense humming. If not, option into a handoff. Work out of the handoff the same way you would a pick and roll. Try and get downhill. They hedge. You can't like turn the corner. There's not a pass, a lay down to make. Okay, pass the ball above the break and reset on the other side. Keep moving. Make the baseline cut man, I can't think of the word. Anyway, in concert. Yes, make the baseline cut in concert with the rest of the actions. All this stuff. And the Raptors, nice to see them grind out 120 against truly an undermanned 76ers team. Pretty big game from Bruce Brown, who played out of the handoffs the best, I think, offensively I've seen in a few games. He went 3 of 4 from downtown. That's not so bad for a guy like him. That's pretty damn good. Kelly O on those like post seals where he gets the mismatch, he's able to do some damage. The cutting, a little bit of shooting, getting to the rim, 18 points, 3 steals, 11 assists, 5 boards. Maybe he's a bit like, more aggressive on the rebounds. He could have got one of those vaunted triple doubles that are not nearly as vaunted these days. Javon Freeman Liberty has a great left-handed finish in traffic, in transition. That was nice to see. We're talking about a lot of the same stuff. Jalen McDaniels, -4. Grady was -14, which was the worst on the team as far as like plus minus for anybody who cares about that kind of stuff. The Raptors, they got, There are quite a few players on the 76ers who know how to win, chiefly among them Kyle Lowry, of course, who know how to game a regular season game, get into their looks, manage pace, respond to runs, all this kind of stuff. And they had the response. The Raptors, I think they got as close as what, like 7 at the start of the fourth quarter. You know, doesn't always just keep, they're not a steamroller. It's not a boulder picking up momentum going down the hill. It's a boulder going up the hill, and the moment you stop pushing, it's coming back down on you. The Raptors are Sisyphus this season anyway. I wonder if maybe like the the transition or the evolution from Sisyphus is into somebody named Scotty who can actually roll the boulder up the hill. That's kind of what we're waiting to see. But a game. Phoenix Plays E says, how do you feel about everything from the Philly perspective in terms of how legit they are if Embiid, who's coming back in 2 days, is truly healthy? Man. Also, a comment here from Coco. She says, healing isn't linear. Yeah, that is very similar to my response just reading that question. Embiid is a guy who has played with like significant knee injuries during playoff series. So he was playing, but he wasn't healthy. Embiid is a guy who has played through lots of injuries. He's a guy who has had worse performances, and he's gotten criticized a lot for like shrinking in the playoffs when really he was injured. So I think based on track record, Embiid's probably coming back earlier than a lot of players would, and he's going to be a good player. If they're in the play-in and Embiid is there, they're very strong there, extremely so. I mean, just like good luck handling him if he's healthy. It's tough, man. If Embiid is healthy, let's say he's found health isn't linear, as Coco says, but he's found like a good spot where he feels like he can do everything he wants to do on an NBA court. I feel quite good about the 76ers. Maybe not as like I'd be pretty shocked if I saw him in the finals. Like pretty shocked. But would I be shocked if Embiid was able to carry them into the Eastern Conference Finals? No, I don't think I would be. Because I think Embiid, when healthy, can be like one of 3 players in the NBA who could just like take a series, take another series, just stack wins, man. It's he really can reshape that team. Although the biggest mistake Philly made was just letting Jimmy Butler go. What a bungle. What an absolute bungle, man. Because they could have been the it team. I think anyway. They could have been the it team. Wait, it makes me look like I was shirtless under this when I was holding like that. It's yeah. Philly I like a lot because I like Embiid a lot, but I think that they're not exactly world beaters, but they're very compelling. When you have Joel Embiid. I know that's not like the best. Well, whatever. Sure. I'm sure that answer suffices, quite frankly. Taco and Nacho Battle Channel says the Easter lamb was delicious. The wine was cool. NC State were rocking. Ignoring this iteration of the Raptors is healthy. Yeah. Unfortunately for me, or actually fortunately, I don't want to be somebody who complains about their job when this is my job. I do have to watch these games though and talk about them. And there are less and less compelling things to talk about with this iteration of the Raptors. And there are some fun things, to discuss, but this is a team that's struggling. We have now, hopefully it's not 14, but 13 games in a row. Also, this isn't wood, it's plaster, so, drywall. So I don't know if that knocking did any good. But and there's not even a stud there. So where's the stud? Here's the stud. This is what we're doing on the live. We're trying to find studs in my wall. The Raptors, they're a bad team. A lot of their guys are injured. Mauricio Arenas says, when is Quickly and Barrett going to play ever again this year? I don't know. They have both had to deal with, well, Just obvious. We know why, right? For RJ, quickly stuff isn't out there, I don't think. So I don't know because that kind of stuff you never, especially with the position that the Raptors are in, forcing someone back could seem quite cruel, and to what end? So that's kind of where we are with that. And I know they get paid and all this kind of stuff, but I will once again stress that the thought shouldn't be, why are these guys, and I know you're not saying that, Mauricio, but just for anybody listening who's like, well, they get paid to do this. If you at your own job wouldn't get paid while you mourn somebody, then that's not bad for NBA players. That's just like, we need more labor protection for you. That's my takeaway from that. So these guys, I think they should be able to take their time. I don't know how quickly they're coming back. Um, like the Raptors will let us know, if at all, whatever that ends up being. And Mauricio Arena says, "How can fans watch this train wreck?" There's some stuff that's fun. You can hear it in opposing broadcasts. You can hear it, by people who tune in and see that, like, you know, the Raptors pass a lot. There's a lot of motion. If it's your first introduction to this style of play, it can be quite exciting to see, 8 shots from Grady, 9 shots from Bruce, 8 shots from Olynyk, 11 from Javon, 6 from Kobe Simmons, 6 from McDaniels. And then obviously, like, Gary's at 20, Wars at 18. These guys are meant to eat up some of the volume. There's like that egalitarian style that hopefully, is able to, like, ratchet itself up and get better and better the more talented players are on the floor, as we've seen. I think the Raptors are 1-14 since the pizza party, but the pizza party, it wasn't like the best teams they were playing, but you could see some of that, like RJ, Scotty, quickly. These guys, they're playing some good hoops. Now, it wasn't perfect hoops. It wasn't hoops that made me think like, they're going to like make a run at the play-in, but it would have been more compelling than everybody getting injured. Pirtle dislocated pinky. Scotty, he broke his hand right there. You can see the scar on my hand. He broke his third metacarpal. Been there, done that. It's RJ and quickly, obviously, dealing with completely separate things. It's just like, this team is not very good. So you have to adjust, you know, you have to adjust expectations. Mauricio Arena says it's been 2 weeks. Come on, quickly. Tankathon is on. Where's the defensive focus? Yeah. The defensive focus, I think, can wax and wane. This was a better game for stretches because, like, Mo Bamba was the starting center, but he only played like 13 minutes. The 76ers shot 56% and hit 24 threes. For anybody who is listening at home, 24 threes would be the record for some NBA teams on how many threes they've hit in a game. Like, it might seem like just another Raptors game where they lose, but this, for Philly fans who watched this, it probably felt like kind of a special game, a special night, because they banged triples like crazy in this one. And defenses, at least they typically find that defenses can control for volume of three pretty well. You can design a scheme to force teams off the line, make them, dribble downhill, make them go to secondary options, that kind of stuff. But it's hard to control really for 3-point percentage. So did the Raptors do a good job of controlling for Philly's volume? No. At 43 attempts, not necessarily. Did they do a good job of controlling for their percentage? No, definitely not. However, this is kind of a pop-off game for Philly. You make 24 threes, you shoot 56%. That's kind of where you're at, right? That's a lot of threes on really high efficiency. That's why, that's why everything is where it is. Mauricio asks, can we sign a center with size and a power forward with size? There are 2 of them, and they currently have not working hands. Scotty Barnes is a power forward with size. Jakob is a center with size. And also Jonte could be a power forward with size, depending on how, if Jakob was healthy, if they ever played together, or if Kelly Olynyk and Jonte played together. But Jonte is currently under investigation for the betting situation. So, and the Raptors, like, who could they sign? I guess they could, like, use instead of it being Kobe Simmons that they use a 10-day on instead of it being Jamias Ramsey, they could, like, honestly, they could use 10 days to cycle through bigs if they wanted to, but if as far as, like, their scouting department and what they think, they probably just don't think any of the bigs are compelling, and they'd rather than being a stopgap for the last, like, 9 games this season, they'd rather get a look at some of the guard and wing players that they think could actually contribute next year when their front court is healthy, when their front court is, at the very least, like, Scotty, Jakob, and Kelly. Jonte, I don't know. Nako the Nacho says they could resign Koloko for next season if he's healthy enough. Yeah, that certainly could happen. And on top of that, he just has to be okay. And he has to be, in a healthy enough state to play basketball. We will see, honestly. I wouldn't hold your breath on it, though, because that stuff is pretty scary as far as, like, what Koloko's had to deal with. Marcus Aurelius says the Raptors defense in general is bad, and they have problems defending the perimeter. Yes, it is definitely bad. Their rotation their starting 5 is Javon Freeman Liberty at guard, who was not even an above average defensive guard at the G League level. That's one. They have Gary Trent Jr., who is a below average defensive guard as the other guard. They have Grady Dick, who is certainly a below average defensive forward. They have Bruce Brown, who has been well below average defensively this whole season, whether it was on a good team in Indiana or on these Raptors. And they have Kelly Olynyk, who has never once, nobody has even mentioned for a second that he was like a vaunted defender in the front court. This is the starting 5. The guy who came off the bench to play 30 minutes, Jordan Nwora, not known for his defense. Not known, like, that's where we are. This team is not good enough for, like, it's depressing. That's kind of where it is. You have to, like, look at this team and you have to try and enjoy, like, the small flashes with Grady. And this is not me preaching. If you don't want to enjoy this stuff, it's asking a lot of fans to enjoy this much stuff, to watch hours of this much stuff. So it's not preaching. The Raptors, they should feel the better team than they currently have. Some of that is due to injuries, of course. This team would be a lot more watchable with RJ, Emmanuel, Scotty, and Jakob. Like, definitely. But as it stands, this team is playing really bad basketball. They play within scheme. It's like, that's what it is. Mauricio says, depressing, it's an excuse. Defense needs to be a priority. Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. Defense is a priority. However, I'm sure I played yesterday in the Raptors Republic 3-on-3 tourney. A couple times I guarded a guy that was better than me. I prioritized the defense. I did. He took me off the bounce and he scored. That happened a few times. Defense can be a priority, and you can also be a team that is fielding rookies and a host of below average defenders, very little athleticism on the floor, and that's what the team is. And the team has been ran roughshod. Anybody who even sniffs being an above average defender is injured or out on leave. This is the team. It's frustrating, and that's what it is. That's what it is. The players who are here are the ones who play. And the Raptors currently don't have very many players available. And they're not a team like the Houston Rockets, who, when they didn't have players available, they had a guy like Jayshawn Tate, who was like a 25-year-old rookie who was like really gritty and willing to guard. They didn't have like those types of guys. The guys who are trying to make this team mostly bring the pop offensively. And that's not because they're a part of the Raptors organization. That's not because Darko told them, we don't care about defense, focus on you. That's because all these men here have been working on their games their whole life, and they came to this moment, years and years of practice, years and years of playing, and they're not good at defense. That's where it is. They scored 120. There's some good offensive players here. They've practiced their whole lives, and they're better on that side of the floor. Some teams, the makeup of it, the right guy, the wrong guys get injured, it's going to manifest the other way. This Raptors team, it's manifested this way. There's a couple of let's see, where was it? Jingpeng says, got to focus on the bigger picture, folks. It might be bad for a while, but hopefully the overall direction is in good hands. Don't miss the forest for the trees. I don't blame people for being frustrated. I don't like you're watching bad basketball. 13 losses in a row. The only thing is, sometimes they're in life, sometimes there isn't an answer that works. That's what it is. Sometimes there isn't an answer that works. Sometimes there is no easy answer. Sometimes there isn't a way out. The Raptors, for this 9-game stretch, there's not a way out. The only way is through. And they got to go to battle with the guys who are available to play. And those guys, on average, are worse than the guys that they're playing against. Them's the breaks. Marcus says, the Raptors, even with healthy RJ, IQ, Scotty Barnes, and Jakob, are still less talented than the starting lineup of Siakam, OG, Barnes, Schroeder, and Pirtle. Team will be bad next year. I do agree with that. And I'm waiting to see what they do in the summer because they will have some money. I don't know if they try and spend big. I don't know if they try and get like a couple different pieces. But yes, the difficult part was that Siakam, OG, Barnes, Schroeder, and Pirtle was a little bit expensive for what they were achieving. And that's kind of where we were. But yeah, I do agree. Like the starting lineup is worse. The team got worse. And the team was underperforming and it still got worse. But yeah, it's kind of, that's what it is. Van Hoot 2234 says, didn't Batman have a saying about its darkest before the dawn? Perhaps this is like the Bane situation where we are being born through the darkness, molded by it, shaped by it to become strong as a team. Perhaps, Jingpeng says, yup, LOL. There isn't luckily lots of good basketball still going on. If you have love of the game outside of the Raps, hopefully you do. And yeah, glad to keep talking about the team. For anybody who wants to watch good hoops tomorrow, there is, because in the women's game, in the NCAA, because they play 4 years, you got Juju versus Paige. You got Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. Like that, going back to that, big basketball tomorrow. And especially like, if you're aware of the women's game, some good hoops there. And if you aren't, I don't know, dabble tomorrow. See if you enjoy it. It's big games. Like they're going to draw millions of viewers. But as far as like if you want to watch good basketball, you got to do League Pass, honestly. Yeah. It's yeah, that's kind of where we're at. It's the Raptors aren't a very good team right now. They lost 13 in a row. And so I hope people don't think I'm excusing. I am simply diagnosing. I am diagnosing. That's what I feel like I'm doing. The Raptors are like an immensely ravaged, injured team. This is largely why they are that way. Before they were injured, they were also underperforming. Agreed. What was said about it at that time was that everybody's going through the changes of the team. There's no consistency, all that kind of stuff. They were underperforming, 100% correct. Prior to all the trades, they were underperforming 100%. However, where we are currently, and everybody I felt like agreed that they were underperforming. There's been a lot of underperforming this year. However, at this point in the season, you just got to call it like it is. This is not a good team. If you saw this lineup, across the road, if you're an NBA team, then you're like if imagine the Raptors played this team however long ago when they were a good team and they didn't beat them, you would be distraught. You would be like, how did we lose to this team? That's kind of where we're at. Marcus Aurelius says, have you heard about 7'8" center Olivier Ryu going to University of Florida? Liban tweeted out because he was playing in, all the Canadian like stars, up and coming players. He was playing, and yeah, Josh and Liban had kind of talked about him. I saw like 2 clips. It's that's where we're at. with that. I don't know much about it. I like once the season is over, I'm diving, and also I guess Olivier will be more of next year. I had to look into it because I'm not a draft guy. I'm a beat reporter for the Raptors, so most of my attention goes there. But in the off season, we'll get like a lot of conversations about upcoming draft guys and stuff like that, where we can lean on the expertise, not of me, but of the scouts that I know. You know, Slug DZ says that was really, really bad. Yeah, I did, and that's kind of funny. I didn't say pretty on the the introduction for the podcast because it was. You know, that's where we're at. Mauricio Arena says Samson, the MD diagnostic analysis doesn't justify the lack of depth. Wara, Abaji, our G League scrubs, bait cleanhouse. Yeah, I don't. I think that Ochai, if he hits threes, is an NBA player. As of right now, he's injured, and before that, he was not hitting threes. And I have openly talked about how I've been disappointed with Ochai since joining, and that like the threes, his defense I think has been like NBA level for a wing, and he's been able to stick quite a few difficult players, but that is not enough to keep you in the NBA. What's keeping Ochai in the NBA is the fact that he can play defense, and he has a history coming into the league as a shooter. He was like in really incredible at Kansas, tremendous. You're waiting to see if that comes around. That's what's keeping him. The potential. On the floor impact, not good. Yeah, agreed. Wara, the Raptors are trying, it's kind of the inverse. They're like, okay, the offense we feel good enough about. But as far as the defense, there's a long way. And then also on top, like this is what I wrote about. I wrote a piece on Wara where I said, it seems like he hasn't played well enough to make his continuation with the Raptors a no-brainer decision that they say yes to. It feels like he's downstream from the decision the Raptors make in the summer about Gary Trent Jr. So he had an opportunity, Wara did, where he could have played well enough on both sides of the floor to make the Raptors say, like, yeah, this is somebody we definitely stick with. This is somebody we keep around. But he hasn't been compelling enough. So I do agree with your sentiment about being disappointed with Wara and Ochai. I do get that, but I don't feel like G League scrub like that level. They both do things at the NBA level. They both need to improve. And that's kind of like where we're at. Marcus Aurelius says, at 25 going on 26, do you really think Wara can learn to play defense? Better to cut him in off season when his contract is up? Question mark. I am not confident in his ability to like learn defense, or that like the Raptors will be able to like impart this wisdom onto him. I think that if he were with the same system over a certain amount of time, that familiarity can improve anybody's defense. Would it improve it to the point where you're like happy with it? Probably not. And this is just me watching Wara, like how he defends and the history of defense at the NBA level. It's tough to just make that jump. And as far as like cutting him in the offseason, yeah, I'll just reiterate. I think that his contract decision exists downstream from Gary's for the Raptors. Coco asks, will we hear from Trey about draft stuff? 100%. Yes. We'll be talking about the draft prospects again. So, yeah. And Coco says another like very good addition. End of bench guys aren't going to be what makes or breaks the team under normal circumstances. 100% correct. If an end of bench guy can help add something, anything, for like a third of the season, you've won it. That's a huge deal. And you get different times, like different runs of play from different end of bench guys throughout the season. We've seen this from the Raptors in the past, and not even from like necessarily end of bench, but like even Corey Joseph was like a really good half of a season, a really tough half of a season. We saw that happen with John Salmons. You get like 14 good games. You're like, nice, John Salmons is bringing it. But the motivator, game in and game out, is Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. The Raptors do not currently have a Kyle Lowry or DeMar DeRozan. Kyle Lowry was on the other team tonight. They have all the end of bench guys like Grady, Bruce, Kelly, Gary, Javon. Grady would not make, like a contender rotation. Not close. Bruce, if he's back on form, sure. Kelly, he might get cut out of it depending on the matchup. He might get into it depending on the matchup, but he's not for sure. Gary could get cut. Like, it could happen the same way with Bruce. You know, that's what it is. Nameless says we can blow right past the 16-game losing streak record. Yeah, that's nasty business. You wonder if if a couple of the guys come back before that happens and they make an earnest attempt at it. Nameless also says we're about to set a new 21-game losing streak easy. That would be pretty gnarly, man. I can't pretend to know exactly how the rest of this season goes, but that would be gnarly. Van Hoot 2234 says, do we have enough developmental runway to allow Ochai, Wara, and Grady and GTJ plus a potential wing / guard from the draft? I don't think so. This is why I wrote about it at the very start of February. It was like the gunner role on the Raptors, and why I think that Gary and Wara, the Raptors, they shouldn't have both of them no matter what to start next season. It just does not make sense to me. If Grady, you find a contract that both sides are happy with, and it's not like crazy, well, I guess that's couched into both sides are happy with, then I think it makes sense to keep Gary because the players love him. He's a great like representation of professionalism and all of this kind of stuff. That's the intangibles. He also shoots the ball pretty consistently, and the other inconsistencies in his game, you're probably not paying for the potential anymore. And his contract, I expect to be lesser than it was. So as far as like, it'd be a little salary cap, like CBA pervert, if you're trying to like pinch players' pennies and stuff like that, those considerations that the team will have, he could be quite affordable. And so if Gary's affordable, it makes more sense to keep him than Wara. And if Gary, you're just not able to find any common ground, and his expectation is, for himself is a lot higher as far as terms of like, possessions, money paid, all that kind of stuff, then you can look to Wara. But I think like having, especially next year when Grady gets like a lot of time to work on his body, work on his cardio, keep getting reps, having Grady, Wara, Gary, it just doesn't make sense to me. And that's before, as you say, like they very well, and Ochai, they very well could draft like a wing or a guard. If the best player they think is in the draft is available, then why not? And yeah, head to head, Ochai and Wara, I think it's easier to see Ochai fitting in on like a good NBA team if he just shoots a three. And it's easier probably for Ochai to get the three on track, given his track record, his history, than it is for Wara to suddenly start defending at an NBA level. I think that's more achievable, if I had to guess. But this is just a lot of loose thoughts. MSJ says, Samson, is JFL a part of the team next year in your opinion? I find him kind of fun to watch. If I had to guess, no. But I wouldn't be mad at it. He is kind of fun to watch. Some of his driving is really fun. It's the playmaking that the Raptors have been really disappointed with because they did give him a lot of reps at the G League level. It didn't really go well. And then on top of that, like we're not seeing a lot of it at the NBA level, even less so. And he is like a one speed guy. There's not a lot of tact to the way he attacks out of like these ball handling situations. And that's why he's so like prone to like a quick, nice run in a game, but kind of floating the rest of it, or just like running these primary actions where the ball gets stuck and he has to reset. Is like every once in a while he'll find that edge. He'll be able to attack it like four times in like a 9 possession span, and it'll be nice, a good run, but it's still not justifying the amount of possessions he gets really. So that's kind of where we're at. He doesn't score the ball incredibly well. He can score it at the NBA level, but the playmaking is just kind of stagnated in a place that I don't expect them to be on the team next year. Luke Philpott says, while the season is decided already, what are some of the more nuanced trends you are watching closely? Nuanced for me can be like really esoteric and stupid. So maybe just like I am watching closely how Grady handles in the pick and roll. I'm watching Grady's bailout passes above the break. I'm watching how Grady aggressively looks for his own shot. I wish he got more than 8 up tonight. Although some of them he really was like just gunning, getting the ball up quick. And as far as the above the break shooting, just percentage wise, looking for that to come around a little bit more. Hit one tonight out of the pick and roll. Was a nice shot. I liked it a lot. That's some of the stuff. I was told I have coming into the season, I wondered how Gary would kind of comport himself in Darko's system. In a system where when Gary had his best playmaking span of his Raptors career, like a 2-3 week span where he's averaging 4 assists a game. A lot of it was coming out of corner offense, handoffs in empty side actions where he drew a lot of attention. He made the laydown pass. That is something I've stopped paying attention to really, but I wondered if Gary might be able to, if ever, he might be able to like make a step as a playmaker, but that just hasn't happened. Like he had 2 assists tonight. I get it. He's a gunner. I think Gary is a gunner, and I think he thinks that too. And like, he's a good enough gunner to be in the NBA and get like a handsome sum of money and enjoy that, man, and like play that role. But that's a nuanced thing I really have stopped paying attention to. I was paying attention to Jonte Porter, kind of his defensive decision making and how he played out of the short roll. That was nuanced, but I should have been looking even more nuanced into his off the court behavior, or how his alleged off the court behavior played into the alleged on court behavior, etc. What else am I looking for? That's where I'm at. I was paying a lot of attention to RJ and Quickly and Scotty, and they all stopped playing, which means that all of the big pieces I had planned are off-season pieces, which is fine because it means I get to like take my time, and it means I also get to like really dig into this stuff. But when they're all sitting on the bench, nobody, like, if I wrote the big Scotty piece right now, like if I revisit like the pick and roll stuff, nobody cares. He hasn't played in forever. It has to be like when everybody can be excited about him playing again. So that kind of stuff will be summer stuff. So yeah, fans have been robbed of some good basketball, more fun basketball. A writer like myself, a talker like myself, I have been robbed of some of the things I wanted to write to pad out the rest of the season. And also people don't want to read game stories really. And also like access to players is worse than it's ever been. So it's harder and harder to tell stories without having it be like these truncated, Frankenstein's monsters types of things where you're just like smashing in quotes and you really are like twisting yourself into a pretzel to tell a story that you wanted to tell before the game, instead of like noticing what's happening and getting to talk to like guys and ask them interesting questions. And so it's like, it's just the stuff I want to cover, it hasn't gone as well. Because like the very least, I moved to Toronto to like be able to talk to guys and tell like kind of more interesting stories and that kind of stuff. But at the very least, the backbone of that is like I can like slump into the analysis stuff really quickly. But then the analysis stuff is like, who do fans want to read about on this team? Grady, which yes, I write and talk about Grady quite frequently. But like Scotty, Jakob, RJ, Quickly, all those guys, none of them are playing and haven't been playing for a while. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. Van Hoot 2234 says, do you think the access will ever improve again? That is pretty much reliant on the Professional Basketball Writers Union, or maybe they call it something different, and their ability to put pressure on PR. Because for me, if I'm like, I want this to happen, there's no motion there. It has to be, what's the, this is going to be another time. Sorry, yeah, Van Hoot 2234 says you have a union. It's an association, the PBWA. It's not like, it's an association that communicates with the NBA about access and behaviors and regulations and all that kind of stuff. But Robert Baratheon, he says, which is stronger, 5 or 1? And he goes, and it's obviously for the people who are listening on audio, I'm doing 5 fingers out or a fist. And he says the fist, 5 together. I by myself, I could create no change as far as like access. But Lewis is saying we're talking PBWA. But if we want access to be better, there has to be like a coalition. There has to be a united front where the PBWA and the decision makers at the top end really ride for everybody to have access and like a lot of access. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at. So I don't know what access will be like. But honestly, do I expect it to improve again? No, because like I've talked about this before, but the players have it's less important for players to like be friendly with media and to like have good relationships with media and all this kind of stuff, because players can just like speak to their fans and like get their messages out however they want anyway. And it's different. And I love well-written editorials. I love when a player can collaborate, or give themselves to a writer, and that writer can kind of turn their story and imbue it with like their perspective and the contextualizing, everything like that. And I think we as a society, we collectively miss that stuff. And I think typically players are more likely to represent in talking with fans or using their platforms to represent their own business interests and to represent their interests as a brand. Now, that's also clashing with, of course, the fact that like journalism and coverage of Black athletes has been like caked in racism and all this kind of stuff for a really long time. So you're getting rid of that to some degree, because also players as brands can act in their own disinterest at times too. But it's just, I wish we had a shot at like the happy medium where well-intentioned writers who have rid themselves of like some of that prejudice and stuff like that, they were able to imbue the stories with their perspectives, contextualize, tell unique stories, unique angles, connect cool things, all that kind of stuff. And players would trust that. But if you're a player, why would you trust it? Because there are some journalists who really can do that. But there's a lot of journalists who just do not handle players' names and stories with care, or the care that they should. So it's tricky. I don't think access is going to improve. Abre Los Ojos says, I haven't been here in so long. How's it going, Samwise? We're doing good, man. Thanks for popping in. We're going to end it here pretty much. Coco says this is across the board in terms of journalism and criticism right now, too. Certainly. Nothing supersedes the bottom line. And yeah, we all know how that goes. I'm not going to harp on about it. I've been doing navel gazing or adjacent to navel gazing talking for like 6 straight minutes. A basketball question before we get out here. MSJ says, so the never ending question, it is for me, who is going to be the backup? JFL maybe, he's a hooper, but if not him, who? Free agent, draft? I think that player is going to be signed, if I had to guess. I do not think it will be Javon Freeman Liberty. And I like Javon, but I talked about him for, a bit. But I don't think it'll be Javon. I think they will sign their backup point guard for next year. Aurelio Soho says, thoughts on AI journalism? Burn it down, man. I do not like AI at all. I got the Dune tattoo here, the Butlerian Jihad, destroy any machine that mimics the thought of man. Spitting Frank Herbert. Killing it. I'll leave it there. I would just say, kind of like how, like roads are a public good that we all pay for. Like that kind of stuff, right? Everyone benefits from it. I wish that AI, if it was to be used, was heavily regulated and also used only for the collective good rather than used for like a capitalistic pursuit. Because if you allow AI to like absorb people's job and their work, then it is only ever serving like the very small wants of those who own the AI and are able to like steal people's thoughts and like harvest human identity to sell AI. And so people who are also existing in that 1% can use AI to underpay and can use AI to descent upon everybody, all that kind of stuff. That is not a public good. And that is how it's used. Oh, I don't like it at all. You know, um, actually, Abre Los Ojos says Samson Marks. Marks actually has a quote about this. I think, like, I don't remember what I read the collected works once, but I don't remember exactly. But he had worried way back when about machines, if not used properly, will only exist to descent upon the power of labor, and that's like we don't have to think about it like machines, but AI is certainly being used as a cudgel to make it like, well, if you're going to do labor, you have to do more. It has to be more exhaustive. You won't get paid the same. You have to do more work because AI is doing the stuff that, all that kind of stuff used to do, and it's doing it for free. And that represents the interest of a very small little group of people. Yeah. Lewis says you actually finished Das Kapital. I read Frederick Engels and Karl Marx, the complete collected works, and you know that. All right, everybody. I can't wait to see who unsubscribed. All right, that's like, why am I talking about this, man? This is absurd. Sorry to everybody who was like hated this. Yeah. Thank you to everybody for listening. The Raptors lose again, 13 in a row. We're talking about Das. Oh man. All right, everybody. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day and goodbye.